चित्ताहिनाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिः न तेजो न वायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायुः न वा सप्तधातुः न वा पञ्चकोशाः न वा पाणिपादम् न चोपास्तपायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ न मे वै मनो नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थम् न वेदा न राज्ञः अहं भोजनन्नैव भोज्यं न भोक्तः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्मा न बन्धुर्न मित्रम् गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकारिरूपः विभुत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणाम् न चासङ्गतन्नैव मुक्तिर्न बन्धः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः Shivoham, Shivoham. Om Bhadran Karneभिः Shruyamadeva Bhadram Pashyemakshabhirajatra Sthirairangaye Shushruvaram Sasanubhiः Yashema Devahitayadayuhu Swasti Indro Vridashava Swasti Pusha Vishvaveda Swasti Nastavisho Arishtanemihi Swasti No Brihaspati Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Do one more.
Pratasmarami ridisam spuradatmatattvam Sachitsukam paramaham sagatim turiyam Yatsvapnajagra sushuptamafaiti nityam Tat Brahmanishkalamaham Shabhuta Sangaha Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.
Take a moment and allow the eyes to close. Find a position for your body that you're able to sit comfortably for 7-8 minutes. just ensure that the body is balanced, that the spine is straight but not rigid, and most importantly, that your breath can flow freely. Draw the awareness inward. The senses of sight, of hearing, of smell, of touch. Bring them all inward. So the senses are awake, but focused inward instead of outward. Draw the awareness to the breath. But instead of being aware of the breath in your chest or your rib cage or your lungs, bring the awareness of the breath to a place low in your abdomen, about 2 inches below your belly button, a place called the Swadhisthana chakra. Draw the awareness of the breath there. About 2 inches below the navel. As you inhale, take the inhalations from that energy center. Feeling it activate, awaken, expand. And as you exhale, exhale out also into that center. And allow yourself to rest in that place at the core of your being. For a few moments, just draw the awareness to the inhalations and exhalations at the Swadhisthana chakra. If the mind wanders, you can give it a gentle mantra of so, hum, so on the inhalations, hum on the exhalations. It means I am that. I am one with all. I am all. I am that. But allow the awareness mostly to be on the breath. And if you need the mantra, let it chant in the background of your awareness. From the next inhalation, as you inhale, allow the breath to rise. So rather than inhaling in a way that's expanding horizontally out, allow yourself to inhale from the Swadhisthana chakra, from that place about 2 inches below your navel. But instead of expanding out, allow that breath to rise gently through the being. So you're inhaling upwards through the solar plexus, through the rib cage and lungs, through the throat, and up to your third eye center, to that place just between the eyebrows, called the Agya Chakra. And then exhale back down. Back down into the Swadhisthana chakra. And if you can't make it all the way up to the third eye center on one unbroken, smooth, easy inhalation, don't worry. Just carry the breath as high as you can, gently, smoothly and easily. And then let it exhale back down. But try to let it rise higher and higher on each inhalation. Rising higher and higher on each inhalation, and dropping deeply down into the core of the self on the exhalations. If the attention wanders, just draw it back to the breath as it rises higher and higher. And then as your awareness drops deeper and deeper on each exhalation. And even if you can't bring the breath all the way up to the third eye on the inhalation, at least allow the attention and intention on the inhalations to be on that third eye center. And allow that energy center to draw the breath up toward it. Try to keep your body still, because the mind goes where the body goes. So try to keep the bodies as still as you can. Rising higher and higher on each inhalation, and dropping deeper and deeper on each exhalation. Gently bring your palms together and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome again to satsang. We'll begin as always with a question that's come in advance, and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. Such beautiful questions. Do you believe that astrology is a real thing? For example, does Mercury retrograde actually affect us? Or is it our belief in the power of Mercury retrograde that is affecting us? So, astrology is something that a lot of different traditions in the world believe in and pay a lot of attention to. In India, there's a whole beautiful system of Vedic astrology. Here's the way that I think about it. The short answer is yes, I absolutely believe it affects us. But even more important than the planets is how we think they affect us. So it's yes and yes. It's not really either or. It's yes and yes. And let's talk about each for a moment. I'm not an astrologer, but I do love science, and especially light science. And so one of the the things that we know in light science is that the way that we get high tides and low tides in the ocean is due to the moon. Okay? There's something about the gravitational pull between the moon and the earth that causes however many billions of gallons of water there are in the ocean, which is a figure I don't know, to move so much one way or the other that if you've ever been on a beach and stayed on a beach for some days, the difference between where the water level is at high tide and where it is at low tide sometimes is a 20 feet, 30-foot difference. One moon, one earth, one gravitational pull is moving billions of gallons of water, probably trillions of gallons of water in the ocean, by 20 or 30 feet each way. Full moon, even more. Now, the other part of light science that we know is the human body is about 70-80% water. And so if you take just those two pieces of information, what we know is the pull between just the moon and the earth is enough to move trillions of gallons of water by 20, 30, 40 feet. How is it possible that the pull of all of the planets on our tiny bodies that are almost all water isn't going to impact us? I mean, we may not have a high tide and low tide where, most of the water is on our left side or our right side, or, but clearly it's impacting us. It's inconceivable that it wouldn't. If that's what gravity does to water, then it's doing it to us in some way. And that's only the moon. So then you take every other planet, the moons of those planets. Clearly it's going to impact us. However, what it does is it gives us probabilities and likelihoods. So for example, let's go back to my moon and high tide and low tide situation. Let's say that you love to walk on the beach. Let's say that you are a little bit reckless, not like the most cautious type of person. Let's also say you don't know how to swim. Okay? Now, an astrologer can look at the charts and know, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., high tide, super high tide. You go to the astrologer, or you call the astrologer and you say, so is tomorrow an auspicious day for me to take a morning walk on the beach? Or you simply say to the astrologer, tell me my fortune for tomorrow. What's going to happen to me tomorrow? Well, if that astrologer knows you, knows your tendencies, knows what's about to happen with the moon, because they've got the list of high tides and low tides, that astrologer could say to you, there is a great chance of danger in the morning tomorrow. There is a great likelihood of a catastrophe in the morning tomorrow. Move your morning very carefully tomorrow. Now, it doesn't mean you are going to drown. What it means is if you keep moving through your life the same way you've been moving through it, and you find yourself in the midst of a high tide with your not-so-cautious self who can't swim, good chance of a catastrophe. And so that astrologer might say to you, tomorrow morning, stay in. sleep in tomorrow. Or stay home and do this puja. Don't go out in the morning. They're going to give you pieces of information based on what they know. Now, are you absolutely predetermined to die? No. If you take the information given and you're careful and you're conscious, you'll make it through the high tide no problem at all. This is the role that astrology can play in our life. It gives us probabilities. It can say, at this time, in this way, in this case, right? They tell you this for business, this for this for that. In the same way that the astrologer of the tides can tell you, good time for swimming, not good time for swimming. Good time to see the tide pools. You want to see a sea anemone? Good time, low tide. You want to take a morning walk? Good time, low tide. So use astrology for that, but realize also how much our minds play. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard people say things like, well, the stars just aren't in my favor. Planets are against me, things are going wrong, I can't help it. It's like saying I drowned, I couldn't help it, it was high tide. Well, sure you could have helped it. You could have stayed out of the water. You could have been more careful. You could have learned to swim. There's lots of ways to avert the impact if we're aware. But also to remember the impact on our mind. So if I think, my business is failing, it must be my stars. This is happening, it must be my stars. Our minds then get into that preconceived, predetermined mindset, and we actually end up creating that. Because when you talk about predetermined, a lot of us think that pre means thousands of years ago. Predetermined means someday, thousands of years ago, God was sitting and writing it all. Here's what's going to happen. Pre just means before this moment. And so if in this moment you go out and you eat way too much pizza and you wash it down with way too much Coca-Cola and then you have way too much ice cream afterwards, you have just predetermined a stomach ache for tomorrow morning. Was that stomach ache predetermined thousands of years ago? No. Was it predetermined? Yeah. By what you did the night before. So pre just means before that moment. When we talk about things being predetermined, it means not only my stars, not only my karmic package, not only my past lives, it means everything in this life. It is predetermined that you are all going to be sitting here in satsang tonight. Thousands of years ago? Maybe not. But you've taken decisions and steps. You've made choices, you've made decisions to come to India, to come to Rishikesh, to come to this part of Rishikesh. For many of you to have come to the Ganga Arati before that. And then say, all right, we can go for pizza later. Let's go for satsang now. We can check our email later. Let's go for satsang now. That decision predetermined that you're going to be sitting here. But this concept that we have that somehow we are victims of a vague predetermination that we have nothing to do with, that was written up in the sky somewhere, and that we are just victims of, is killing us. And it's killing us because it's giving us the excuse to not change in our life. It's giving us chains that we voluntarily tie on ourselves. Our astrology doesn't chain us, but our belief that we are victims of it, or victims of anything that is predetermined and out of our control, that chains us. And so whether it's your astrology, whether it's your genes, whether it's your financial situation, whatever it is that has followed you into this moment, realize that you're not a victim. Just not having any control over how it came to be. You don't have any control of what the stars are doing. You don't have any control of your DNA, fine. But we do have control over how we think about it. And how we think about it plays just as much, if not more, of a role in that which happens to us. And so the moon and the stars and the sun and gravity are going to do what they can do. What's up to us is to say, what can we do? Okay, so here's my astrological situation. What can I do? I don't know how to swim. I live on a beach. I like to take morning walks. I know. Let me find out when it's going to be high tide. Let me make smart decisions. Or I know, for example, this disease runs in my family. Okay, what can I do with my health, with my spiritual practice to avoid getting that? And then how can I take my entire way of thinking and create the world in which I live? Because this whole debate of nature or nurture, this whole debate of, is it your genes, or as we're talking, is it your astrology? Or is it your environment, and is it all of that? It's neither one or the other, because here's what's really beautiful. When we think of our environment, that nurture part of it, we think it has to be, for example, the family I was raised in, the education I got, the people I live with, my really annoying boss, or my annoying colleagues, or my annoying neighbors. But environment is actually what we create. Here's my favorite way of thinking about this. Raise your hand if you've ever gone scuba diving. Good, a lot of you. Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever gone surfing. Okay, some more of you. So a lot of you have been in a wetsuit. Now here's what I love. Does anybody know actually how a wetsuit works? You know, because you've heard me talk about it. So here's how a wetsuit works, which is, for me, such a beautiful metaphor for life. The reason it's called a wetsuit, not a dry suit, is it doesn't actually keep you dry. You think, oh, I'll put this thing on and then I will stay dry in the cold ocean, but no. What the wetsuit does is it allows in a very thin layer of water. And then your body heat warms up that water. So then when you go scuba diving or surfing in a cold ocean, your environment is actually warm water. You are living in warm water that you've created. Your body heat has warmed up the water. You are comfy and cozy in the cold ocean. That warm water is your environment. That which I think, that which I feel, the energy I radiate out into the world, first into my own internal world, and then out into the world around me, That is my environment. Most of us think our environment is just what other people are doing, people around me. But actually, my closest environment and the one that has the most impact on me is that which I'm creating. And so think about moving through the world as though it were your wetsuit. If you can't warm the whole world, don't worry. Eventually you may be able to, but for the moment, at least warm the environment that you are moving through, your energetic field. That is your environment. And that is one we create. And so rather than feeling victims of that which was predetermined, realize, A, in this moment I am predetermining my next moment. What I eat in this moment is predetermining how the cells of my body operate in my next moment. The choices I make, the decisions I make are predetermining where I will be in my next moment. And the thoughts I have, the feelings I have, the beliefs that I have, the energy of me is creating the environment that I move in. So let the stars do what they will. They're going to do it anyway. You can't control them. But you can certainly control your own predetermination as well as your own environment. And so focus on that. And if you have the ability to get tips and hints and wisdom from astrology, it's a bonus. It's a head start. You don't have to outrun the high tide. You know in advance it's coming. So we use it where we can. But we don't allow it to make us feel victims or to scare us. It's a tool in our hand. It's one aspect of what we use to predetermine our next moment. Ah, okay, I won't walk today. And if you don't have access to it, don't worry. Just stay grounded and connected to the wisdom of the universe. But these days, a lot of it's available anyway. It's easier to get access to it. And why not? I'm always in favor of as many tools as we can get. Why not? Whatever assistance we can have to help navigate our way through this existence, whatever wisdom, whatever light we can get, take it. Use it or don't use it. And then create that environment. Before taking another question in advance, we have time for one more question tonight. So if there are any here, I'm happy to take any questions that are here, if there are any. Yes.
So at this moment in the world, there's people taking to the streets in Lebanon and Beirut, Chile and Spain, and claiming injustice, wanting a world that they're not living in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And while there's beauty in the unity that's happening and the coming together, it also feels like it's the similar energy of separation that they're actually experiencing themselves. The injustice they're experiencing themselves, it's like the rising up,
Yes.
the rallying is the same fight.
Yeah.
What message who are feeling that impulse to do something, what would be your message on how they could do something that was truly transformational?
Wonderful. So, if you've been stuck for a while, the first experience when you get unstuck is to go, now sometimes we do it physically, sometimes we do it vocally. I mean, just imagine being in a really small airplane seat for a long time, on a long plane ride. What's the first thing you do? You get up and you finally reach where you're going and you stretch your legs and you stretch your arms and you kind of do one of these. There's a natural instinct to want to expand into a new freedom. But then, of course, we realize that in order to move through the world, I'm going to need to use my arms again. I bring them back in. I don't have to move through the world like this constantly. Come back in. When we have been stuck and oppressed, whether we really have been or whether just in our minds we have been, the minute we decide, I'm going to be free. You see this a lot in kids go off to college. Kids who have been very, protected and sheltered and whatnot growing up. They go off to college. What happens? They're drunk every night. They stay out all night. They do all kinds of wild and crazy and stupid things. And because that freedom suddenly is, oh my God, and they don't know where to go. And so they kind of explode all over the place. But most of them find their way back in relatively soon. So the initial moment of, isn't in and of itself a bad reaction. The dilemma comes when that becomes the only reaction. Because A, yes, it's rooted in separateness. B, it certainly knows what it wants to say no to, but it has no idea what to say yes to. And so it becomes a movement of no. We don't want this. We don't want that. Well, fine, what do you want? We don't want this. They're like 2-year-olds. This is why we say terrible twos, because what do kids learn at 2? Do you want to go to bed? No. Do you want to stay up? No. Do you want to have dinner? No. Do you want to go hungry? No. It's not about staying up or sleeping or food or not food. It's about, look at this. I say no, and look at how red Mom's face gets. It's power. It's autonomy. It's a game. It's fun. It has nothing to do with actually kids being obnoxious. They're for the first time in touch with this autonomous power. This one word, no. Look at that. Mom turns all red. Dad turns all red. Everybody starts to sweat. This is a great power I have. No. But this is what's happening with these movements. They're movements of no. And when you find that for the first time, yeah, it's exciting and wonderful. And at 2, we can kind of laugh about it and, send moms of 2-year-olds spa day gift certificates and, things like that. But it's not a functional way to actually have any kind of a movement that's going to change the world. We have to say yes to something. And in order to say yes, I have to be in tune with the flow of the universe. And the only way to do that is to bring the arms back in, to bring the voice back in, to bring the energy from shouting out to back in, and to check in with where is the flow of the universe and where is it going to use me? And that's where I have to be grounded and anchored. And so what I would say for movements like this is the energy is wonderful. Yes, let us come together for something. But let us come together to say yes rather than to say no. And if it begins with a simple no for that brief moment, no to my airplane seat that was so small I want to stretch my body, okay. For a moment. No to thinking that I was just one with my mother and now I realize I'm an autonomous being, fine. But then yes. Terrible twos don't last very long. And in the same way, okay, so maybe we've been oppressed, we've been repressed, we've been under a regime. Fine, no to that. Briefly, energy, we come together. Because sadly, people tend to come together much quicker and with a lot more energy and passion. We were talking about passion earlier today, in saying no to something than in saying yes to something. So no is actually a very good immediate mobilizer of people. But then you need to really quickly channel that into, okay, now what are we going to say yes to? And this is where what our world really needs today is leaders who are leaders of yes rather than leaders of no. And that's what we don't have nearly enough of. So there's a lot of leaders who know what we need to be saying no to. No to oppression, no to suppression, no to separation, no to this, no to that. And we've got very theoretical yeses. Yes to sustainable development. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? Yes to peace. What does that mean? It's like the story that Puja Swamiji was sharing earlier today about the slogan on the back of the rickshaw that said, "Oh God, sabka bala karo lekin shuru mujh se karo." Bestow your blessings on everyone, but start with me. So theoretically, we want sustainable development, but I want lots of beautiful manicured lawns in Southern California. I want to eat hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets that are gobbling up the water of our planet and cutting down the Amazon rainforest. I want peace, but I want the oil I need to drive my car at a cheap rate. I want peace, but I want more and more clothes at cheaper and cheaper prices. So yeah, I'm all in favor of, ending suppression and repression against women, except those who work in the sweatshops that are producing the clothes that I want to buy more and more of, cheaper and cheaper. We want good governance, but I want to be able to give someone a little bit of money to get what I want done quickly. And so the dilemma is we need leaders who are able to give people a yes that isn't theoretical, that isn't vague, and that actually includes, here's what you need to do, here's, not dictating, But here are actually the steps you can take. Oh, you want peace? Wonderful. Here's how you, right here, right now, in this moment, can start to be an agent of peace. And here's how you can connect yourself to your own peaceful nature, so that even though you may need the first 1, 2, 3s from me, 4, 5, and 6, and every number after that comes automatically. You know, we learn to ride a bike, and our dads hold the back of the bike while we get ridden around the parking lot. And then Dad lets go, and you keep pedaling. And so Dad holding on to the back of the bike at the beginning, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're, 25 and your dad is still having to run behind you holding on to the back of your bike, you'd say, well, maybe you haven't quite figured out how to pedal on your own yet or gotten that courage yet. So we need leaders who are able to give people a 1, 2, 3 to say yes to. Peace. Here's 1, 2, 3 in your life. Or here's 50 options of 1, 2, 3s. Because of course there's not only one option of 1, 2, 3. Here's ways to bring peace for the world through you right here, right now. You want sustainable development. You want there to be a planet that's got air and water and soil for your children, for future generations. Here's a 1, 2, 3. And here's how you need to connect with the peace within you. Mother Earth within you. So that even though I got you going on that bike, now you're pedaling. And now you're holding the bike for others. And that's what we need. And so for all of those movements, it's wonderful that they're happening, that people are being activated. But they're not moving. It's like that quote that I love of Mahatma Gandhi of, what's the point of all that speed that doesn't have any direction? So these movements have lots of speed, lots of energy, but they don't know where to go. And so yeah, we end up just separate, different type of power. And this is where it's so important to cultivate leaders, or to find the leader within yourself. In our scriptures, there's 2 very beautiful teachings. And there's many, but there are 2 that when you take together give a beautiful message to conclude tonight on. The first teaching is the teaching when Lord Krishna says, whenever adharma, unrighteousness, is winning out over righteousness, whenever darkness is winning out over light, I incarnate in human form, or in form, to bring back dharma, righteousness, to the adharma. I incarnate to bring back light to the darkness. Teaching 1. Teaching 2. The divine lives within all. God saying, I am in all. However the devotee worships me. I am in that form. And everyone is an embodiment of the divine. There is no one, nowhere. The Upanishads give this very clearly. There is no one, nowhere not pervaded by the divine. So who's incarnated to bring back light to the darkness? Who's incarnated to bring back dharma to the adharma? All of us. right? I incarnate to bring back Dharma, to bring back light. And that divine is in all. God is in all. It means that incarnation of the divine to restore the light, to restore the Dharma, is us. And of course, we'll all play different roles. But some of us have to play the role of those leaders who are guiding people with what to say yes to. Because that's what we need. And if in that moment when you had all those people and all that energy, you had a leader like Gandhi or like Martin Luther King or like Mandela, like so many leaders the world has known, to say, fantastic, now here's what we're going to do with all that energy, it would be extraordinary. But we don't. And so that's the dilemma. But this is where the work that we're doing is so important. And it's why also courage is so important. Because if all of the leaders the world needs, if all of those incarnations of the divine the world needs, spend all their time identifying as the recording in their own minds that says, you're not good enough, you're not the one, must be someone else. You don't know enough, you can't do enough. You're too ugly, you're too stupid, you're too fat, you're too poor, you're too old, you're too young. Then we're going to be stuck. And so this is where it's so important to really cultivate that courage, to know, what is my role? How can I be that instrument? It's like that beautiful prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, right? O Lord, make me an instrument of thy mercy. That's what we're called upon to be, an instrument. And with an instrument, what matters most is not how beautiful it is, not how many diamonds are on it, not where it comes from, but how well it works. If you've got a hammer, or you've got a wrench, or you've got a saw, or you've got any kind of tool, any kind of instrument, covered with gold, covered with diamonds, but doesn't work, it's not a good instrument. And so for all of us, the question is, how can I, instead of being so focused on the accessories, focus on myself as an instrument of mercy, of love, of peace. And that's what we're called upon to do. And then we'll move forward together into yes, of oneness.